Is it recording?
Yes.
All right. You sure?
Yes.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, in the last class while I was not here, you were asked to look at the preamble. Now, a couple of things about the preamble that we need to talk about. Number one, let's talk about the structure of the Constitution. Right now, I don't want to talk about anything that's inside the Constitution. I just want to talk about the structure so that you have an idea of what the document's about. And let's compare it to something that you're familiar with. Sassy, you're familiar with the structure of books? Okay, so books are generally divided how?
The chapters.
Thank you, Ceci. I appreciate that. Books are generally divided in chapters. Oftentimes, at the beginning of the book, there's a little writing by somebody about the author of the story, right? What's that called?
Biography.
The prelogue. Okay? It's called the prelogue. And at the end of the book, oftentimes there's also a little bit of writing about what's going to happen, or a little bit about what you just read or the experience that you had. Right? Okay. So that's a book, and that's something that you've been familiar with for a long time. Let's think about the Constitution kind of in a book form. And we are going to liken the structure of the Constitution to a book. For example, the prelogue. Okay? The prelogue is to a book as the preamble is to the Constitution. The prelogue is to a book as the preamble is to the Constitution. Then, once you get past the preamble, which, by the way, is very short. Very short preamble. Truth be told, it's one sentence. It's one sentence. It's a long sentence. It's a long, probably run-on sentence, but it's just one sentence. And that one sentence, the purpose of it is to tell you...
Teachers, the internet is down right now. We're working on it, but right now the internet is down.
It's to tell you what the Constitution is about, the purpose of the Constitution. Then you get to the inside, and the inside is divided, similar to books. Books are divided in chapters. Books are divided in chapters. The Constitution's chapters are called articles. So each article is about a given subject. Okay, so the Constitution has articles, and a book has chapters. A book has chapters, and the Constitution has articles. Okay. So articles are to the Constitution as chapters are to a book. Okay. This sort of wordplay is also, you're going to also visit it when you're working with Ms. Diaz on your entrance exam, because they like to use a lot of those gameplays. They tell you this is to this as that is to, and blank, and you've got 4 or 5. So that's why I'm using these word plays. Now, a book has at the end a prologue. Is that what it is?
At the end,
An epilogue. The Constitution doesn't have an epilogue. It has amendments. It has amendments.
Excuse me, final cut word that needs your attention.
I'm giving the computer a detention for speaking out of turn. So it has a detention, has to be here early tomorrow morning. All right. So what we were discussing in the last class, Mr. Salvat, what we were discussing in the last class was the preamble. And the preamble tells us what?
I know.
Okay. But the preamble tells us what? I just told you a few minutes ago. What does it tell us?
What the Constitution is going to be.
The purpose.
Yeah.
The purpose of the Constitution. Oftentimes, you're sitting around and you're asking, well, I get the Constitution, I get what it does, but what was its original purpose? So with the preamble, we get that, and the preamble is found in your books. You don't have to see it or get it, or in your iPads, but we don't have any internet, on page 54. And it says, we the people. So who's setting forth the purpose of the Constitution?
We the people.
We are. We are. We the people, Ceci, Salvat, interesting that I put them together, Ricky, and so on, are the ones that are telling what the purpose of the Constitution is. We the people, in order to form a more perfect union. That's the first purpose. The first purpose of the Constitution is to do what? Mr. Daides? Nope. Yes.
Form a more perfect union.
Exactly. To form a more perfect union. Now, Ms. Zambrano, what does it mean by forming a more perfect union? Ms. Zambrano, are you sure? You're right. The purpose is, look, we've got this loose association, we've got this confederation, and everybody kind of is pulling in their own direction. And what we want to do is we want to be closer. We want to be closer. So, it's kind of taking a relationship to the next step, right? Your boyfriend, girlfriend, you're going steady, right? Then you're engaged. I know, you've never gotten there. You're still in the steady stage. But after you get engaged, in order to make a more perfect union, you do what? What are your parents? Exactly. So the Constitution is intended to bring these separate things together in a more perfect way. Now, did your mom stop being your mom when she got married? Did your dad stop being your dad when he got married? So the states continued being the same reality that they were, the same substance. They continued to be states, but now there was a deeper, more profound commitment with the states. So it's taking a relationship to the next level. And notice it's the first thing that it tells us. Now, when they wrote it in 1787, that's what they said. Did there come a time when the United States almost got divorced?
Yep.
Yeah, it did. It did. There was a civil war in which some of the states really played the role of not being completely convinced that this relationship was going to work out. And they basically said, we want out. We want out. Ultimately, did those states prevail? Did those states win? And those states would have been which states?
Our states.
Not our states. Which states would that have been? The North wanted out of the Union?
South.
The South wanted out of the Union. And the North wanted in the Union, and they had this conflict resolution called the what? The Abraham Lincoln thing. The Civil War, thank you. Because the Abraham Lincoln thing would have been kind of weird for us to call it. You know, we're studying history in our history books, and we get to the chapter of the Abraham Lincoln thing. Thank goodness you're not going to be writing history books someday. Hopefully you're going to learn patience of terrible diseases. All right, shh. All right. Okay, so the first purpose of the Constitution is to, in essence, formalize and concrete, like a marriage, the relationship between the states, in order to form a more perfect union. Establish justice. Establish justice. That's the second purpose. Alexander, what do you think that they meant by establishing justice? How do you establish justice? Okay, think quickly. Close your eyes for a second. I'm going to say the word justice. Tell me the first word that comes to mind. Rights. Tell me the first word that comes to mind.
Fairness.
Fairness. Tell me the first word that comes to mind. Judge. First word. Court. Okay. All of those things are different pieces of justice. But I think Ryan probably summed it up best when he said that it's about fairness.
Equal rights.
It's about fairness. It's about people feeling that there's a sense of fairness that exists. Let me tell you why. If we were just thinking of justice as establishing laws, can laws sometimes be unfair?
Yes.
Yeah. So much so that over time, people feel the need to change those laws. And I'll give you an example. Last year, Mr. Salvat. Last year, let's say that you were going to be here late on some game and your father really didn't work at the school and you needed to communicate with your father. Were you tempted, perhaps, not you, but generally, were we tempted to bring our cell phones and put them in our bags and hope that nobody caught us? Valentina is here with a little grin going, yeah, we were. And it's true. Sometimes laws are changed based on the need. Is that true today?
Yep. Yes, sir.
No, today the rule is changed where you can bring your phones, I was going to say iPhones because 99% of you have iPhones, and leave them in your bags inside your classroom. The law has changed. So just laws isn't necessarily justice. A set of laws isn't necessarily justice, and I've already told you about my incredible trip to the Philippine Islands where there were road signs and traffic lights and stuff like that. And when I was with my driver, he went right through the light, and everybody was going right through the light, even though it was red. Everybody was going through, and I said, "What is this madness?" And he said, "Here, there's no police to enforce the law, so even though there's a law that says that you shall stop, nobody pays attention to it. So laws themselves is not justice." Now, in addition to that, so enforcement is necessary for laws. Put your hand down for a second. Enforcement is necessary for laws to have a certain sense. But oftentimes, even with enforcement, people feel that the law is not just. So we need to have a system where there's a sense of fairness that exists. Because even though there's laws and a way of enforcement, if we don't feel that there's a sense of fairness, then we could do what everybody fears, which is take the law into our own hands, which is hide the cell phone here, even though if I'm caught, I'm going to be punished, okay? Because there's not a sense of fairness in the law and the administration of the punishment of that law. So justice, established justice, is a sense of fairness. So what in the United States could we have done to make people feel that the laws and the enforcement of those laws were fair? Now you can raise your hand. Yes, Chum. Not yet. What could we have done to make a sense that the laws were fair? Yes. Well, they have to be, and that's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. The laws have to be the same for everyone. Because if we walk around and we see Valentina breaking the law, and the teacher saying, "Ah, it's Valentina. She's a good girl. Let her do it." And then you do it, and you get punished for it, then it's a sense of unfairness. And I'll show you, I'll give you the one that you've experienced the most. This is the one that you've experienced the most. "Mr. Salvat, stop talking. You are punished." Mr. Salvat gets up and says, "I wasn't the only one talking."
I wasn't the only one talking.
Exactly. There, in that statement, what he is demonstrating is a sense of unfairness because there is not the same treatment that's given to everybody. Not the same treatment that's given to everybody. So there has to be a sense that I'm going to be treated the same as everybody, and it doesn't matter who I am. Whether I'm the President of the United States or I'm begging for change at a traffic light. The treatment and the laws have to be fair. What else do we want? Yes, Mr. Salva.
To enforce the laws.
We need some sort of system that enforces the law, but not only that, we need to trust the enforcers.
Yep.
Right now, in the United States, is there a sense that some